Welcome all to our greatest show. We got one chance to show how much we know. We've got 2 hours. Let's start the clock to talk about our favorite doc. Welcome to episode 404 of an Unearthly Podcast, streaming live on the 26th of May, 2021, and featuring the greatest show in the galaxy, written by Stephen Wyatt and starring Sylvester McCoy as the Doctor and Sophie Aldred as Ace. I am your ringmaster, Bill Sylvia, the Man in Black, and with me are our ticket seller, Randy Ronson McCulloch,
Good evening.
organist, Mad Matt Winchell,
And now for something completely different.
and chief clown, Thomas Fireheart.
Hiya, Georgie. I couldn't think of any other clown joke.
Look up the
Don't do that.
clowns.
Don't do that.
Actually, on that note, Randy, did you ever read Spawn growing up at all, or like just come across any of it?
I was not big on Spawn, no.
Like that would have been another chlorophobia thing if
Yeah,
it came up.
One of the main villains is a demonic clown that can turn into
Yep.
a giant freaking demon. But yeah,
Nope, never really watched Spawn, or never really read Spawn.
Although that might have been more 90s than 80s now that I think
Yeah,
about
it was more
It was.
90s, because that was
Mhm.
around the same time as Sandman, which I didn't read
Mm.
either. I was busy thumbing through 80s cyberpunk books at that point.
Gotcha.
I was busy
How's
reading William Gibson and the like.
How's everybody's week?
Not too bad.
I've got to say I'm already tired of 90 degrees.
We have our air conditioner on, so I don't freaking care, but I nearly killed myself this week.
Oh,
I dropped one of my pills and mistook it for one of my other pills. So I took twice the dose of one pill, which I shouldn't have, and half the dose of another.
yikes!
And that fucked me up all week. In fact, I'm still suffering after effects, but they're dying down now.
Yeesh.
Yeah.
Hey, Bill, you don't have to mow a lawn in this shit.
No, I don't.
I remember when I used to, and God, that nearly killed me too.
I had to mow the lawn because it was getting about 2 inches long.
Yep.
It needed to go, and I finished that today. So yeah, my week has been busy. If I'm not constantly worrying about rain, I'm constantly being reminded I need to go out and mow the lawn. I'm like, yes, I know.
Yeah,
For like the fifth time this week.
I haven't mowed a lawn since we owned a house, which was almost 20 years ago. You know, it was about 20 years ago. And we couldn't afford a gas-powered lawnmower, so we had one of the hand-push ones. So if the grass got too long, it took hours because it just wasn't that. It wasn't able to get through tall grass.
Yeah.
Well, I can do you one better, Bill. Not only is this a hand pusher, but it has no spout to shoot out grass. You have to mulch it.
Oh Jesus.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, this wasn't one with a spout. It was just like literally just
I
ground it up
had to
and left it
mulch
where
it
it
back
was.
into the ground. Yeah.
No, the one I used to have was
You ever
gas
come
powered.
across snakes in the grass?
Around in Wisconsin, no.
No, not really.
I saw a frog though today.
The one I had was a gas powered, but it wasn't a riding. And we lived on the level part just before a hill, and the hill was on our property. So I had to roll that thing up and down the hill.
Our entire street is on a hill, plus the hill from the road back to our backyard goes down too. It's a joy.
Yeah, I bet. But I'm just like, I hated mowing that long. I haven't mowed one since 2001, so it has been 20 years.
Yeah, when my dad used to make me do all the mowing, I flat out refused to do it before 4 o'clock in the afternoon because it would just be too fucking hot otherwise.
Depends upon which part of the yard you're in. And actually today was relatively nice out for whatever reason. It was still warm out there, but we had a really nice cool breeze for whatever reason today.
Yeah, because it's going to cool down in the next couple of days.
It was trying to cool down yesterday, but then all the rain disappeared. Weatherman don't know what the weather is, even if they have advanced machinery these days. Step outside, you punks. Let's see what the weather's like. Your guess is as good as mine.
Oh man, it's already down to the 60s. Jesus. I could open my window right now. But yeah, it's supposed to be down into the 50s starting tomorrow. And then it back up into the 60s, but not the fucking 90s. We don't get to see that until probably mid-June.
I was gonna say probably June, maybe July, if we're really lucky. We don't see 90s until then.
All I know is I'm looking into a small AC that I can get in my bedroom because the one in the living room is not good enough.
I need one for my room too.
Aaron went to Cheesecake Factory on the weekend, brought me back some cheesecake I haven't eaten yet.
Oh, we got Conan stuff we're gonna be busy with all the rest of this week apparently.
Yeah, there's doing this thing where if you tie your Conan account to your Twitch thing and you watch 2 hours of certain streams, you get free stuff for like the next 5 days. So that's going to be us for the next 5 days.
You know us, a bunch of collectathon fiends up in this group for gaming.
Rawr, decor, rawr, yeah.
Decor, oh, more costumes, give me the pretty dress up. I want that mask. Lanterns.
But let's see, anything else happened to me this week? Oh, I've been listening to a lot of old retro comedy music. Like pre Weird Al stuff. Everybody thinks Weird Al invented comedy music. No.
No, Weird Al just was the most successful at it.
No, he wasn't.
Well, actually, not at least not at first.
Well,
or at least of parody.
Yeah, like parody
parody.
Specifically he is,
Yeah.
but comedy music probably not.
Different people were wildly popular in their day.
Actually, now that I say that, didn't Alvin and the Chipmunks start off as music?
As a parody, yeah.
Not really parody, they were doing covers.
Oh, okay.
But they were doing
Technically.
covers in that chipmunk voice. Yeah.
I remember one of the 2 Christmas cassettes that my mother played every Christmas.
Oh God, yeah.
Was Alvin and the Chipmunks Christmas.
Yes, my parents had that too. After about 5 years, you fucking go mental.
But
somebody can't say the word hula hoop around me without me hearing Alvin's voice.
I know. I've heard that
And
song
wanted to
so
throw a
many times.
punch.
But no, way back in the 30s and 40s, there was a comic band leader by the name of Spike Jones. And he would take, what was current songs for that day, and he would add little comedic bits to them to make them funny and put them out. Like, if the song was Knights of Fallen, he would have, stuff crash onto the stage. And he had his own radio show and his own TV show back in the day. And I have at least one album of his, so I was listening to that. After Spike Jonze's era passed, there was another comedian by the name of Ray Stevens. He was a country western singer, and he was responsible for such wonderful songs as The Streak.
Yep.
And the Mississippi Squirrel Revival.
Yes.
And he was big during the 70s and 80s. Now, while Weird Al was there in the 80s, Ray Stevens was more well-known than Weird Al. When you get to the 90s, of course, that switches around. Ray Stevens is still there, but Weird Al is what everybody talks about. And has been ever since.
I mean, it's funny because I'm trying to think what pre-Weird Al comedy music I've heard beyond like that friggin'
There's
I can't remember what the hell the song's actually called, but it's that one that's like "Hello Mother, Hello Father" one.
Yeah, here I am at camp. Yeah, Granada. Yeah. And I'm then there's other people that would do comedic songs, but they were just like one-offs. Like I think it was I can't remember who it was. Did like My Ding-a-Ling,
Oh,
And then-
I know who he is. Damn it. Johnny Be Good.
Yeah, same guy.
Ah, God, my brain. Why can't you remember this now?
Um, Chuck Berry.
Chuck Berry. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
I've seen him do My Ding-a-Ling live, and it's hilarious.
Yeah, and these people are known for other songs, but every now and then they just quarter a comedic B track, just just because they felt like it.
Yeah.
And just you saying that reminded me of the NWA Christmas album that everyone tries to forget because it's just no.
I mean that does make me think you could maybe argue "I Am the Walrus" is a comedy song by the Beatles, just because that was basically done to fuck with people.
Well, that's less a comedy, and that's more just blatant psychedelics.
Well, just I guess that's more trolling than comedy.
Yeah, even though my mom won't admit it, that's just plain simple people on drugs.
Yeah.
Anyone who won't admit the Beatles were high, I don't know what to say.
They weren't that high at the beginning of their career.
They weren't like that all the time, but there was definitely a period in their run where
during the Help era, they were probably okay.
There was a solid era where there were psychedelics involved in everything they did.
Then they went on that world tour and came back high as kites.
Yeah, anyway, at least as far as what I've gotten up to this week, the only thing I can really think of, aside from finishing the game I'll be talking about later, is my dad finally got the touch-ups of the painting done over at the flat out the back, so I vacuumed in there yesterday again, and then I'll have to friggin' mop so I can get, basically when we're done here, I'll be jumping off so I can go over there and mop so I can finally fucking move in, or at least get the process moving. So far, I have all of my replica stuff or figurines or whatever that are still in boxes. I just went, well, the wardrobe only really needed vacuuming, so fuck it, and I just took it all over there. So now my room's got a tiny bit more space. And then was just with how late I woke up, I was like, yeah, fuck it, that'll do.
Weren't you originally thinking you would be moved in over there 6 months ago?
Not 6 months ago, but definitely by now. But we just can't end up getting held up a lot. And also, I just have really odd sleeping patterns on my days off. So
a month ago, I thought you were close to finishing the process.
Well, yeah, but then basically it's a matter of I've only been able to take so much time off, and it's a matter of whether it lines up with my dad's time off or not, so we could do as much as we could. But yeah, we're pretty much all that's really left is that my dad's got to put the curtain railings back up and the door stoppers back on, which we had to take off just so we could paint, and stuff like that. And yeah, I've just got to go in there and clean it out again now that all the painting's done, and then the process of moving in can start properly.
And so if it's not clear by the fact that we're going into the weeds on everything that we could have done this week or thought about this week, there's not a lot of news. By which I mean, there's not news.
No. But now, since Bill has said it, on tonight's show, we've got birthdays. There is no news, not even Big Finish. Because that was all of Big Finish was coming out in November.
Erg.
There is a couple pieces of Geek Talk. Our summary, our review, our final thoughts, and our ratings. So let's get started, shall we? We've got 4 birthdays over 3 days. Starting on May 24th is the birthday of Jim Broadbent, who played the 11th Doctor, the one that was kind of nervous around girls, in Curse of Fatal Death, 1999, he turned 72. On the same day is the birthday of Graham Williams, the producer from 1977 to 79. That would have been the end of the Leela and the Romana era. He would have been 76, but he died in 1990 at the age of 45. Next is one of our honorary birthdays, and that is Sir Ian McKellen, who voiced the Snowmen in the episode The Snowmen, 2012, but is better known for other roles, which I do not need to mention.
We'd be here all day.
He turned 82.
But he's just an actor. He's not really a wizard.
He can be whatever he wants, Bill. And then finally, on today is the birthday of Peter Cushing, who played Doctor Who in the Doctor Who films in the 60s. He would have been 108, but he died in 1994 at the age of 81. So happy birthday, Jim, Graham, Ian, and Peter. At this point, we would move on to the news, but there is no news.
So we're just gonna speed run it right into Geek Talk.
Yep.
Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. Oh boy, brace yourselves.
Yes, so a little while ago I watched Fantastic Four and Fantastic Four Remake, and I remember at the time Rise of the Silver Surfer was not on Disney Plus, so I did not watch it. And then I noticed that they had gotten around to adding it, and I watched it, and I can see why there was no Fantastic Four 3 after this movie. I was already aware of little things such as the fact that the lead actress pretty much gave up on trying in movies because of the director in this movie basically told her to act like shit. Not like a shitty person, but as in to do a shitty job acting, because nobody wants to see actual acting in a comic movie. So I was aware of things like that. I did not quite remember things like... So it's interesting. Doom's voice kind of made sense when you saw him introduced as a human in the first, like a regular, who's always a human, but as a regular person in the first movie. But I don't know if they changed the pitch or if it's just the disconnect of seeing him in the cloak and the mask. But it's like it comes across Skeletor in this movie. There's the fact, of course, they did Galactus dirty. That's been common knowledge for almost a decade and a half now.
Pink
and that was
fart in space.
And that was the main thing I focused on in 2007 when I watched it in theaters, and I did not give a shit about the Fantastic Four. I was there to see the Silver Surfer and Galactus, and I was disappointed on that front. Yeah, the Silver Surfer is more or less a non-entity here. He pretty much has no character until all of a sudden he's like, oh, this argument that I've probably heard at every planet that I've been to suddenly makes sense to me because of a vague reference to Susan Storm looking like his ex-girlfriend. So he decides to sacrifice himself and blow up Galactus. And let me not get into the weeds as to how terrible that would be for the universe as a Marvel comic fan, because I could be here all night about that.
Yeah, but that's just unraveling the universe as a whole. But anyways, moving right along.
But yeah, I would say this movie is nowhere near as charming as the first one. They definitely try at times. The ending is kind of cute. But in all, it seems to play into stereotypes a lot more. Where basically the only thing that Susan is concerned about for 90% of the movie is having the perfect wedding. Which there are ways to write that in ways that don't disrespect the character, but I don't think the writers of this movie were up to that.
Yeah.
There were other things. I did not remember the fact that Johnny Storm basically becomes Super Skrull in taking the powers of multiple Fantastic Four members at once for several scenes. So that was interesting. Doom is a fucking idiot who's like, oh yeah, I don't care if you destroy the planet, but I want to take your powers and become the most powerful person and rule the planet in the meantime. Just, and of course, the way they changed Doom's powers in the first movie make him pretty much unrecognizable here, where he more or less becomes the Silver Surfer for a few scenes. All in all, after watching all 3 officially released Fantastic Four movies, I would say if you're going to watch any of them, watch the 2005 one and pretend the other 2 never came out. Or just watch The Incredibles, or wait and see for the MCU one that's probably going to come out in about 3-4 years now.
Actually, as a person who's at least seen a little bit of all these movies, Bill, I can tell you which Fantastic Four movie is better than even the ones you listed.
The
Watch
1990s one?
Yeah, then watch the 1990s one. At least they tried. Sure, Doom sounds like a guy literally in a plastic mask and has clicking problems with his audio because he is in a plastic outfit, but that's because it's an unfinished movie that was never supposed to be released. Someone still leaked it, it still made it out there, and at least the actors are trying, and at least the plot makes some sort of sense, even if they added an extra villain that wasn't needed.
So how can you see that, for that matter?
I wouldn't be surprised if it's on YouTube.
Okay.
Because it's
nothing...
it's literally a leaked movie.
So you can't go out and buy it, but it may be on...
You can maybe find a pirated copy, because again, it's never been officially released.
Right. And that's why, like, at that point, I see where you come from calling it a movie. At that point, I would cut the line between saying it's a movie you can go out and watch versus it's an unfinished movie.
Marvel's 1994 feature-length film, Fantastic Four movie. You can watch it right now on YouTube for an hour and a half.
Okay.
It's there.
I mean, having not I think I've seen a review of it, but I have no doubt that it's the best one, just having watched these 3.
It's silly and very low budget, but dang it has heart.
Was that supposed to be a TV movie?
It got released on TV when it got leaked.
Yeah, but was it originally supposed to be a TV?
No, it was originally supposed to be a theatrical movie, but the people behind it canceled it because they just made the movie just to hold on to the rights longer.
I'm a little surprised because that's around the time period that it would have been following off of like the Incredible Hulk series and things like that.
Yeah, it's odd.
That had a bunch of TV movies, if I remember.
Also, I would add that it's directed by Roger Corman.
Oh.
I believe he is either a director or the very least producer for it. Which is why I always knew it as Roger Corman's Fantastic Four.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting considering what I'm aware of that guy for.
Which is...
I think he was like the producer on the Slumber Party Massacre movies.
I'm not sure about
that. He's the producer on a ton of B and Z grade movies.
The man has a slew of movies on every length and breadth of quality, and that includes, matter of fact, he did Edgar Allan Poe movies with Vincent Price, and they were some of his best movies he ever did.
Corman was an executive producer on it.
He was a producer, at least, yeah.
He was an executive producer, which just means that his
name... So he funded
it. Yeah.
He funded it, and apparently he was actually on set several times, and he was actually the one that had to break the news to the actors that it wasn't getting released.
Oh, yeah, and it looks like that... From what I can see quickly, it looks like that had nothing to do on the production side with the 80s Hulk movies, so that's why they weren't really...
That's why it wasn't tied, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally the reason the movie was being made was so that the studio could hold on to the rights longer.
Gotcha.
And it ran too long and they lost the rights?
No, they kept the rights. They just made the movies to say that they were making a movie and then canned it. Because they didn't actually need to release it.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. Welcome to the loopholes.
That's a dick move.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably why the movie got leaked, because I believe all the actors were given a copy of the movie. So they could cut out like good bits for themselves for future productions or whatever.
For their demo reels.
Yeah, for their demo reels, so they can prove that they did certain things. I bet you one of those actors literally just went, to hell with you and put that out there for the rest of the world, and thank you
Yeah.
for it.
Well-
So, but yeah, so my review of Rise of the Silver Surfer pretty much ends with that. There's really no reason to watch this. Oh yeah, and one thing I forgot that I thought of while watching it, just the fact that in the first movie they put a random scene that makes no sense in there so that you can see Jessica Alba in her lingerie.
Oh,
And so in
yeah.
this scene, they add an extra scene. In this movie, they add an extra scene that makes no sense. Thankfully, you can't actually see it. Well, maybe not thankfully for some, but I'm sure for the actress, thankfully. They may have shot it. It might have been cut. I don't know. But there's a scene added so that Jessica Alba just happens to be naked in public for shits and giggles, pretty much.
Yeesh.
So that
fan service.
yeah, so you can. I mean, yeah, it's well, even like I said, that scene you can't even see. So it's more just like the director and or writer doing a tee hee hee thing. So I think that's enough to get into the head of the people in charge of those movies.
Right.
Next up is Resident Evil 7.
Yeesh.
Yep. It's kind of funny because outside of playing a tiny bit of Resident Evil 4 when a friend accidentally left it at my place, either that or like I'd lent him my PS2 and he'd like left the disc in. Like aside from playing a bit of that, which is funny because there's a season pass thing where you get a digital copy of Resident Evil 4 with 7, but 7 is the first Resident Evil game I have finished. And technically generally like the first I owned. And it's interesting because it's reminded me that first person horror games have a much better time at like getting, I used to say like scaring, but it's not so much scaring as just getting my anxiety going. Because I'm never gonna be like one of those people doing let's plays where they'll be like screaming or shouting or whatever. I get dead quiet. I'm the exact opposite, where I will just get dead quiet and jump a little and just be like, "Oh, you son of a bitch," kind of a reaction. This game is interesting in that it's way shorter than it took me to actually do, just because I was like dragging the chain, really. I mean, there's flat out a trophy / achievement for finishing the game in under 4 hours. So you could finish this in a day, but it took me, I mean, by virtue of the fact that I took a long break from it, it took me years to bother to get around to finishing it. And to its credit, it's because it got my anxiety up so much that after getting to a certain point fairly early in the game, I was like, I'm just going to put this down for a while and move on to something that doesn't get my heart rate going. And then just finally decided, you know what, fuck it. I want to get through this and I want to friggin' finish it. And finally managed to. And I feel like it's weird because it's a game where like the first 2/3 of it are where my anxiety going through the roof really kicks in. The last third is like, oh, okay, so instead of just only being the creepy rednecks in the friggin' backwoods somewhere, now there's all this weird shit about I don't know if it's government experiments, but some experimental shit going on, and it's like,
It's Umbrella. Technically, it's pseudo tied to the government.
well, I don't know if it's necessarily tied to Umbrella or not. You do there like Umbrella
I guess at this time of timeline, Umbrella
somewhat.
might be dead now, so it might be another corporation, but still. Still, secret
I don't know if it
corporation
counts as
stuff.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if it counts as a spoiler or not, but I won't say who, but I will just say Umbrella play a part technically, but it's very minor. But it's just generally there's like the you think the main villain, at least I thought the main villains were supposed to be this fucked up redneck family who've just stumbled onto weird shit. But nope, turns out it's like this weird secret project thing. And it's like, aw, it was actually creepier when it was just the weird redneck family. Like when it was a lot more supernatural Texas Chainsaw Massacre as opposed to nope, it's all this biological
Yeah,
warfare stuff.
it can't stay actually supernatural because that won't tie into the rest of Resident Evil.
Yeah. It's like it's one of those funny things where it's like, as far as I was aware, the idea is that I almost thought this is essentially basically a reboot. And it's like, no, it's not really. It's just like diverting away from what they were focusing on up to this point. I mean, it'll be weird to see how if 8 follows this up at all.
I
mean,
believe
it
the main
has to,
character is still the
seemingly.
main character.
Yeah. The main character crosses over, which is weird in its own right, but I guess they just figured, why not? Even though it's funny because I know I've seen people say they hate the main character. I'm like, is there really enough to him to get angry about?
There's not even a
Because
face.
he's just kind of a blank slate. Yeah. That's kind of funny. Like, even the handful of times where you could potentially see his face, you don't really see it.
Yeah, he's always like his. You can see like maybe a little bit of his clothes, but like his facial features are almost always in shadow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just it's interesting. I'm unsure as of yet if I'm going to give 8 a try. I mean, I've heard that 8 is more campy horror, which is probably more up my alley anyway, so I'm
It
more
is.
likely to give it a shot.
It is.
And I do know, though, I guess the funny thing is I wonder if I'll do that or if I'll get around to actually playing the remakes of the first 3 games. Because I do own them, because I just figured one day I was like, fuck it, why not? And bought the remakes of 1, 2, and I'm pretty sure I bought the remake of 3. It might have been that they were doing a bundle for 2 and 3 where they were cheap.
I didn't realize they remade all of like that many of them because I only ever heard people talk about number 4.
Yeah, they've done PS4
they've
remakes of 2 and 3, and then pretty much Resident Evil 1's remake from like the PS2/GameCube era has been ported like a billion times.
ported, and depending on where it's being ported to, they'll maybe up the graphical fidelity of it a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are talks about whether or not they'll ever do that with 4, or if
Honestly,
4
doesn't need it. It just maybe needs like maybe a graphics engine facelift, if anything. Just
well,
to make
yeah,
sure things
I mean,
get running properly.
Yeah, they did make a PS4 port of 4, so that to me says if they do it at all, they'll probably wait a while.
Yeah, the one I would be more likely to see a remake of would be like Code Veronica. Because that's the big return for Claire Redfield.
Yeah. Either way, it'll be interesting to see what my thoughts are on the other games in the franchise. But at least as far as 7 goes, I mean, nothing's perfect anyway, but I feel like it kind of dips a little at the end. But otherwise, I enjoyed it.
Fair enough. And with that, I guess I should get the stopwatch ready, shouldn't I? I forgot to put
Oh boy. This one was too convoluted for me to take notes on, so I hope I can do it justice with the stopwatch running.
All right. Are you ready?
As ready as I'm gonna be.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
It's wild, yo. This starts with two people trying to escape from the circus, kind of implying that some of their friends have started the journey with them and are already dead. One of them ends up being killed by a robot, and then the other one ends up being captured and brought back to the circus. Meanwhile, the Doctor and Ace are on board the TARDIS when a robot of junk mail for that circus gets beamed onto the TARDIS, which should have been a bigger deal. And they decide that this means that, yeah, why not? Let's go to the circus. They made a local who basically says that the circus is trash for the economy there. They also meet a Mad Max knockoff who's on their way to the same circus and doesn't want anything to do with them. Then they meet a traditional explorer type, the type you would see in something like a Tarzan adaptation, with his own traveling companion, who he refers to as a remarkable specimen. They come across a few robots and other and related challenges, during which time the not doctor explorer guy just pretty much either leaves everybody to it or fucks off and leaves people to deal with it on their own. Basically, showing that he's much more interested in being passive and in protecting his own neck than anything else. The Doctor and Ace make it to the circus a little bit after everybody else, and they talk to the ticket person, who seems to alternate between trying to scare them off and selling them their tickets to encourage them to go inside. They go inside, and for some reason, it's only them and a family of 3 in the audience, where the Doctor then gets chosen to become part of the talent show, which surprises him. But he follows along and ends up in a cage along with the other 3 that I just mentioned, while Ace kind of runs away and ends up trying to escape within the compound for a bit. In the process, they find out that Ace has one of the earrings from the girl who was killed by the robots. So they end up, once they do capture her, they throw her in a room filled with broken clowns to kind of scare an explanation out of her, which she ends up resisting. But what she does find is the guy that was captured, who is also the technician responsible for keeping the clowns in good repair. Meanwhile, the Doctor and his fellows find that they're being trotted out one at a time to perform for the family of 3. And once they bore that family, they then get killed. So first, the Mad Max guy goes through it, which ends up being because he was tricked by the Explorer guy. Then the Doctor and the girl, the Explorer's companion, whose name is Mags, end up tricking the clowns and escaping on their own. They go into the circus and find a strange cavern. But before they can learn much more about it, they end up finding that the Explorer betrayed them. They get brought back. And the Doctor ends up escaping again and meeting the janitor, who is more than he appears. And that part becomes complicated, and I'm honestly not remembering the gritty details. But but eventually the Doctor sends Ace and the janitor, who's more than he appears, to go find pieces of a talisman that is the key to solving everything. The Doctor gets captured again, and decides that to buy time, all 3 of them, the Doctor, the Explorer, and Mags, should go out and perform for the family. At which point, the Explorer reveals that Mags is a werewolf, activates her werewolfness, and ends up being killed by her. The Doctor and Mags then escape, meet up with Ace, and then the Doctor ends up going to the family's home dimension. They're actually the gods of Ragnarok, where he continues performing for them. At which point, Ace ends up getting that talisman to him, which he uses to reflect their death beams at them. and destroy their realm. And there's more to mention, but I'm pretty sure I'm out of time, so I'm cutting it off there. The Doctor and Ace go off, while Mags and the janitor, who was previously one of the founders of the Psychic Circus, also end up going off their separate ways at the end.
5 minutes, 6 seconds.
Yeah, so I'm glad I didn't go into any more detail.
Yeah, you basically skipped over the finding the psychic well where the gods of Ragnarok are hiding.
Yeah, I mentioned it as a strange cavern, and that's all I. Yeah.
Yeah, there was still another minute's worth of stuff you could have gone into.
There definitely was.
And at the same time, there was a bunch of strange detail and other things. But I think you completely skipped the boy that comes in, the fanboy.
Oh,
yeah.
Shit, you're right. Well, that's because he didn't end up contributing to the plot, which I thought he
he's
would.
literally
but he
a living, walking, talking foam peanut.
And it's
to fill the plot hole.
I'll talk about that later, but I thought he was going to contribute more to the plot, but in the end, there was nothing in the summary to say about him.
Anyway, let's talk about what we liked about the episode. And Bill, you are first, or the serial.
I'm going to have to say Mags. She's an enjoyable character. She has interesting quirks. She has a bit of an arc with overcoming her doubts about herself. And I would not be shocked if you told me that they were considering her as a new companion and it just didn't pan out or something, because she would have made a great companion.
I know they brought her back for Big Finish.
Yes. One of the guys at Big Finish said that they felt she was cheated out of being a companion, which is why they brought her back.
Yeah, it is kind of funny because she does seem like the character who the Doctor would have, at the end of it all, just gone, "Hey, want to come along?"
But apparently by the end of it all, she already pre-decided she wanted to stay with Kingpin.
Yeah, if Kingpin wasn't there, then it definitely would have made the most sense for him to offer her to come with him on the TARDIS.
But I guess given how late in the show's run this was,
I don't know if I don't think they knew that. No,
because but
even the following season, they didn't know until after they filmed it that it was actually the last season of the show.
But I guess like the idea is maybe they figured, I don't know if we at this point have the budget to have two companions running around.
That too might have been an issue.
I don't know.
Yeah, and they didn't want to get rid of Ace.
Yeah.
Right.
Ace was definitely a fan favorite, so they definitely didn't want to get rid of her.
And yeah, like, it would not have been shocking if they were like, well, if Sophie decides not to renew her contract, we'll offer it to this actress who played Mags, which apparently this was her acting debut, if I read that right. If I read the TARDIS article right. But yeah, if I would not be surprised if like this was kind of the backup in case Sophie Aldred decided that she was only going to do one season or something.
That's certainly possible, but then again, by that point, I thought she would have been given her yay or nay.
Yeah, that I don't know.
Yeah, don't know.
I mean, I think I've heard that like Andrew Cartmel said after the fact, I think that like if they had gone another season, the idea is that it would have been Ace's final season and then a new companion would have been introduced.
Yeah.
Oh, this was her Doctor Who debut, not her acting debut. So just the phrasing, the phrasing of the article was just a little weird. Yeah. Considering it's technically her only appearance, at least on screen.
According to Cartmel, the season that never happened, season 27, would have seen Ace eventually go to the Time Lord Academy.
Right.
And
which she ended up eventually doing in the audios and possibly novels.
And that would have been the end of her story arc as far as Doctor Who was concerned, unless she would come back in like specials and stuff.
Yeah, unless she came back in specials or one-offs or her own little side thing if they happened ever to do that again.
Yeah, and then then they would have chosen a new companion, but that was never to be because
they never got finished.
Yeah. Anyway, Thomas, what about you?
Honestly, I'm gonna go with Captain Cook. Because that was like, it's funny just to see this really like stereotypically British character with all this crazy shit going on, but like I kind of like the slow reveal where like at first I thought his character just wasn't running away with everyone else because either he figured it was pointless, or he's like, I'm old as shit, like hell I'm gonna be able to outrun these people. And then it just turns out, nope, actually he was quite aware of what was going on here, and he wanted to get some of that power that they had, or something. I was like, oh, okay.
He's a
Yeah, that makes
coward
sense
and an
for this guy.
a-hole.
Yeah.
Yeah, it turns out you already think he's a dick, but then it turns out he's more of a dick than you think.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
That well
And of
of
course-
just despicableness just keeps going deeper.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah. And of course, it's funny because even when he has his little undead moment, unlike the previous serial where it goes a bit into sort of 50s B grade, extremely over the top acting, this it's like he's basically the same person, just creepier.
I actually liked that.
Mm.
I mean, he's even rambling on about.
Yeah,
He's
this-
still rambling on. Yeah. Oh, this reminds me of the time.
Yeah, that character is such a stereotype.
Mhm.
I mean, even back, Rocky and Bullwinkle
Mm.
back in the day had a parody of that same type called Commander McBrag.
Yeah, him being such a stereotype is really on point with his arc, because he really, like, everything bad about colonialism is kind of wrapped up in the way he thinks about and reacts to the world. Like, it's really on point.
Mm.
By the way, apparently Ben Aronovich, which in some ways seems to have been Andrew Cartmell's like sidekick, apparently suggested that character.
Yeah,
Hmm.
well,
Good
Was it-
choice.
it
A good tongue in
good
cheek
choice.
side villain.
and they got a very good guy to play him, and it's not
Yes.
like it'd be
Mhm.
the last time we see a British explorer type.
Right.
Because again,
Mm.
we would see Redfist Van Cooper in Ghostlight, but
Mm.
that was more of an actual heroic type than the.
Yeah, as opposed to this
Mhm.
clown.
Okay, Matt, how about you? What did you like?
Max was already taken. I'm definitely on that boat too. I
Mhm.
generally liked what they did with her so far, and she could have been interesting to continue. General thing I liked overall. You know what? I think the costuming in this one is actually pretty spot on.
Mm.
We got the explorer type guy and his companion. We got the doctor and his companion. We got all these different freaky ass clowns. We got all these different flashy people
Thank
running
you
the
for reminding
circus.
me, Matt.
We got all the flashy people running the circus, and then all the side characters that get involved, including the Mad Max wannabe.
Mm-hmm.
And then also we got the final bit of extra costuming at the very end, the Gods of Ragnarok. Holy cow, did that actually look decent.
Mm.
I don't know if it was any good to move around in, but they just sitting there, they looked pretty
Yeah.
effective.
Well, yeah, I think that is definitely one of those things where it's like, well, they're never going to stand up, so
So they
Thank
probably were
God
able
for
to do
that.
something. Yeah, they're probably able to do something
Yeah.
that was able to cut corners and would have been terrible to
Mm.
move around in, but something that would have looked impressive where it was.
Mm.
And the little bit of movement they could get away with still looked decent on screen. So you weren't
Mm.
questioning it. Oh, and they also had light up eyes. I noticed that a couple times.
Okay. So I think I'm gonna have to go with I like the doctor in this.
Mm.
Just
Oh yeah, there's some good stuff with him. Yeah, actually.
yeah. Well, not just that. I mean, he's like, first there's like there's something evil here. So he already has
Mhm.
that, that. But then he's thrown off because they think they've stopped the evil thing by killing the conductor.
Hmm.
Mm.
And then
When he wasn't like continuously like pressuring Ace to like do things that made her uncomfortable, I liked him. Like that part kind of bugged me. That
well,
otherwise,
that's the thing. The doctor's always pushing Ace.
yeah. I mean,
Into
that's pretty much
confronting
her
her
arc.
fears.
Yeah.
That is a good chunk of her arc.
I mean, hell, you mentioned Ghostlight, and that's pretty much the main
That's a
the
big
big
part of
issue
her.
there.
It's
Mhm.
a spoiler alert. That's also an issue coming up in Curse of Fenrik.
Right.
So it's this ongoing thing with the doctor trying to push Ace's limits. So the doctor figures out that Ace has a fear of clowns and thus circuses. So yeah, he pressures her to go into this
Mm-hmm.
because he's trying to get her to face her fears.
That would be like if we were doing this podcast and I said, okay, the only way we can do this podcast because Randy doesn't like clowns is if we all went to a circus together and then did the podcast.
Well, you see, that would still work if frickin' Circus World was still over in Baraboo.
You know what's worse than clowns? Danish clowns.
Now I want a Danish.
Mystery Science Theater quote that one. A really bad version of Hamlet.
But I liked, his, there's evil here, and then he's thrown off, and then he just gets right back on the scent.
Mm-hmm.
I liked a lot of his stuff, and when he's stalling for time. Yeah.
And the stalling for time stuff, yeah.
Okay. So, what did we like least? And Bill, you're first.
Right.
Again, this is an overall.
So I'm going to go with WizKid, and that is from the way he was introduced and from how like they foreshadowed his arrival so much, and then he came in and they were like, he's annoying and he has all these facts, and I really thought he was going to be the key to something, like he was going to have memorized some fact that saves the day, and no, he was just kind of there to show up and die.
Yeah. You think it's the Galaxy Quest solution, where the nerd knows this one.
Right, exactly. Galaxy Quest is really the arc that it seemed like they were foreshadowing for him, and then he just shows up and dies.
Yep.
Yeah.
Instead, they're like, nope, he's just doomed. He's just there to show that it don't matter who they are. And I'm like, so really, this kid comes all this way, accepts this thing to be in the circus, has no act whatsoever.
I don't even think they even promised him a chance to even do an act. They just throw him out there just to get roasted.
Yeah. That's, and that's kind of the thing that bothers me, is they're really, and I guess it kind of fits with it being the gods of Ragnarok, which is the end. Because all they care about is getting to the point where they die. Because you see that with the Mad Max clone. He goes out dressed as the strong man, lifts the weight, shows he can do it, and what's the next thing they do? Oh yeah, so now he's going to tell us a joke. And the guy's like, what? And
then starts stuttering most of the lines, and then the gods of Ragnarok are like, okay, we don't care anymore already.
And then they're just
dead.
Yeah. But they don't even give the Whiz Kid that option. He just goes out. It's like, wow, I'm here.
I'm here, and I'm finally part of the show. Zap.
I wonder if that's part of, because TARDIS says that he's based on Doctor Who fans. I don't know what their source on that is. But I wonder if that's a sort of criticism of like, oh yeah, all these people watch the show and can't come up with their own material or something. I don't know if that's the case. I think it's a little harsh if that is the motivation for it, but I don't know if there's reason to think that.
Who he's based off of. I just realized, or who they think he's based off of.
Who?
Peter Capaldi.
Oof. That's right. He was like the big fan that kept writing into the BBC for stuff.
Yes, he was. He was the head of the Doctor Who fan club.
This is literally them roasting Peter Capaldi. Well, shows them. Comes back like 20 years later and gets the show going again. Ta-da. Well, not even 20 years later, like 30
I
years
just
later.
kind of realized that's the,
Yeah,
that
they were attacking
when
fans like Peter Capaldi back in the day.
He was the Poindexter type that they would have been making fun of.
Yeah.
Yeah, because not only did he write to the BBC all the time about the fan club and everything else, he also made fan art. Saw
Yes,
it. He can draw a very good TARDIS.
Hmm.
I wonder if he had a ruler for that thing or not. Anyway.
That just suddenly occurred to me that, oh my god, yeah, that's
Yeah. Yeah, this was about that era, yeah. Oh.
kind of.
I just had another revelation too, actually, what this was also poking at, maybe. What didn't Chibnall come on BBC in the 80s and just insult them for being a lame show? Or for doing lots of bad stuff in the show?
I don't remember.
I think it was during the 80s. So
I feel
he's technically
like if
part
it
of that
was
group too.
Chibnall, it might have been that he wrote in.
No,
or
he was
something.
actually on TV
Ah,
as a kid. He basically complaining on a BBC show that Doctor Who was going downhill. That was Chibnall as a kid, yes.
Well, it feels more Capaldi to me, being like, Captain Factoid.
Yeah. Possibly.
And then, yeah, Capaldi was the one that would had memorized every freaking episode. Anyway.
Yeah.
We're up to Thomas. What you liked the least?
Oh, and specifically, it seems that Chibnall was bashing Trial of a Time Lord. Let's see. I guess. God, it's kind of hard because. Honestly, it's weird. It's hard to think of an exact, an overall thing off the top of my head, even though I've watched this twice. Because mainly what stands out is already taken, and that's like WizKid basically amounting to nothing. God. I don't know if there is anything else. I guess, you know what? I'm just gonna go with the Ringmaster's rapping like continuously. It's just like, who thought this was a good idea?
Well, I'm watching this and I'm like, why the fuck is the Ringmaster rapping? I live freaking 60 miles from Circus World. Their ringmasters don't rap.
But do they rhyme? Because I thought rhyming was normally part of it, just normally not quite as
well. Yeah,
rhythmic.
rhyming I could see, but like explicitly supposed to be rapping is like, oh no, the BBC trying.
The BBC literally walking in going, hello,
England.
fellow kids.
Yeah. It very much came off like that very like people doing kid-friendly or mock rap where it'd be like, I'm blank and I'm here to say, and go on like that.
I could get that, except that this was I think we were talking about this before the stream. This is 80s Britain, so we can assume that they're going to be a little behind on hip-hop culture. And about 6 years earlier, this would have been mainstream rap. Like rap was in its infancy in 1980. So I can kind of see how this would have been like this. This is something like if you've heard rappers, it's blanking on it. Is Rapper's Delight? I'm pretty sure. I'm losing all my street cred here. But yeah, Sugar Hill Gang. Like this is exactly what they probably would have been aware of when it comes to rap at that time.
Well, yeah. I mean, I know the jokers usually at the UK are also usually, or at least depending on,
Rapper's
at
Delight
least
is the song I was
mainstream
thinking of.
wise, are pretty shit at rap. So
Right.
And I mean, this. Remember that this is the pre-MC Hammer days
yeah.
of rap. I mean, MC Hammer didn't get big until around 1990, and this is 88.
Yeah.
And MC Hammer predates gangster rap. So
not if you didn't get big until 19. Well, yeah, like it would have been current. So by comparison, LL Cool J's career started in 1985. This would have been filmed probably around 87?
87, 88, depending on what part of the year this came out in. If it came out in the first 6 months, it was probably filmed in 87. If it came out in the last 6 months, it was probably filmed in the first part of 88.
Right.
Because after all, it didn't take them that long to go through post those days. Post? What post?
Oh, we added a laser beam effect here.
We added a laser beam and a little bit of blue screen. That's about it.
There are a lot of laser beams in this episode.
We added the floating eye. All I gotta say though is I miss MC Hammer parachute pants. Those were comfortable.
I remember being into MC Hammer back in the day.
I remember watching the cartoon back in the day.
I don't remember the cartoon so much, but
I don't remember what was in the cartoon. I just remember watching the cartoon. That's all I recall.
I remember his Please Hammer, Don't Hurt Him album. And I remember his Too Legit to Quit album.
I feel like when I was a kid, he was the kind of thing that like you liked as a meme, like you liked ironically because it was like it didn't age particularly well.
It didn't age well, but at the time,
as an adult, I have more appreciation for it than I did when it was more recent.
As an adult, it didn't age well, but when it came out, it was big. You Can't Touch This was huge when it came out.
Yeah, so
I would still listen to Can't Touch This anytime.
I would have first heard it in the early 2000s, and we mainly liked it as a joke. Like, oh yeah, this is silly, this is goofy. You make jokes about it. As an adult, I was like, okay, you know, I can get into it a little bit more than I could as a kid.
Yeah, but no, when it came out, it was big, and then you had he of course did the Too Legit to Quit album, which he did for the Addams Family.
I remember that vaguely too. Yep.
And then after that, MC Hammer became passé. It was just like, you like Hammer? No. And of course, you know, at that point, the hardcore gangster rappers.
Well, that's right. And they did the commercials of like the power lines and like why you shouldn't touch them using MC Hammer.
Yeah, that didn't help.
Well, yeah, but he had reasons for doing that, and he had some major financial issues.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. It says it became kind of flash in the pan after a couple years.
Yeah,
Sadly.
he didn't invest his money well. And I think I can't remember if he got scammed or not, but anyway, this is off topic.
Yeah, we are way.
So I think it's Matt next.
Yes,
I believe it's supposed to be next. General thing I didn't like about the episode. Actually, there's a couple of things I could call out.
Well, one only, please.
Which one do I want to focus on? You know what? Since it's an end game reveal for it, what's with the air quotes gods of Ragnarok? I mean, they look cool and all, and they're an interesting villain, but why are they called Ragnarok?
The end. Ragnarok literally means the end.
Well, yeah, Ragnarok is supposed to be the basically the apocalypse of Norse mythology. But there's really nothing Nordic about this story.
Yeah, that's just it. It's that I get it's like the end times for Nordic mythology, but nothing Nordic whatsoever in any of this episode, which is why it drives me a little, huh?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, but apparently they were going with somebody on the writing staff had this Norse theme going on because it would come back the following season with Fenrik.
I suppose, yeah. Was it Fenrik or was it
kind of the
Fenrir?
same, kind of the same idea of elder gods and such.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I could also just see it being one of those things where they didn't think too much about it, and it was just kind of, well, that's a word that sounds cool.
Could be.
Meanwhile, I'm just here going,
especially it's entirely possible that they were listening to Sylvester roll some R's, and they're like, "Well, what's something that sounds impressive with a lot of R's in it?" Like,
yeah.
And by the way, I went over a decade unable to roll my R's specifically because of some orthodontic implants that I had for a previous decade. This month, within the past month or two, is the first time I realized I was able to roll my R without a lot of effort again. And this is the first time I've just done it in front of another person in about 20 years.
Oh, wow.
I mean, another person meaning my laptop, but still.
And the tens of viewers we have.
Yeah. And you did it live in front of our 5 viewers, yeah.
Yes, unscripted.
But yeah, I understand it's a cool name and all, but it's like, eh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was partially probably because of that, and somebody had a Norse kick on the writing staff.
Apparently, even though they didn't really throw much Norse into it.
Quite possibly Andrew Cartmel.
Cartmel had a Norse kick or Norse name kick, if nothing else, for some reason.
Yeah.
I kind of wish we could see like what the pitches for these episodes were after they aired, because I would love to see the pitches for Doctor Who episodes and that event and compare them to the stories they eventually became.
As far as I'm aware from watching the behind the scenes stuff, they were stuck with the name The Greatest Show in the Galaxy and just kind of had to work from that. And it was like, okay, there, and they just kind of blurted this out, sort of a thing. Like apparently J&T wanted a story called Greatest Show in the Galaxy, and they were like, well, that's a bit of a shitty name, but okay, whatever. Let's go with it.
Okay.
That's a shitty name. Well, we're just gonna kind of shit on the circus for having that name.
Okay, so are we up to my least favorite thing now?
Mm-hmm.
Mine should be easily predictable. I hated the chief clown. But I had a reason for disliking him. He was such a one-note character. You never really got into his motivation for doing this, other than he was promised something.
Other than he's an a-hole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they kept going, he used to be such a great clown.
He used to be such a nice guy.
You never see any of that. You never see any humanity left in him.
He is literally just that white face, and it's a really annoying punchable one.
Yeah.
And every time somebody dies, he has to make that same gesture, even if he's not in the ring.
Like, apparently that was just like a little flourish that the actor came up with, and they liked, so he
just
kept
let him keep doing it.
I mean, that's fine in the ring, but when he's doing it in the freaking when the robots wind up killing what was it, Bellboy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He stops in the doorway and does it, and I'm like,
see, without anyone looking, I would have, if I was him, I would have made it look a little more sinister before leaving. Like he was fine with this.
If it was me, I would have probably jokered him up a bit.
Yeah.
Had him, laughing or
He-
something as he's
He was,
leaving.
yeah, he was practically halfway there. He really could have
Right.
landed a Joker.
But by the way, I just had the thought that the rap might have been their way of saying this is a future circus, not like the ones we have nowadays. This is what circuses are going to be like in the future with this new rap thing going on.
Maybe.
No, they can go to hell. They can go to hell and die.
Of course, I find it interesting that apparently in some Doctor Who sort of fan poll thing, the Chief Clown was actually voted the best villain of the 25th anniversary season.
Ugh.
Over I forget who the other top two were, but the one he beat out directly was Davros.
Oh.
No.
This isn't even the same season as Davros, so that's weird.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Really?
Yes, Remembrance of the Daleks kicked off the season.
Oh, okay.
Then
that was a kick-ass cameo from Davros.
What was our last?
I thought it kicked off for the final season. No.
Then the Happiness Patrol. Then Silver Nemesis. Then this. No.
Oh, okay. Oh, so maybe what I'm just thinking, because I remember Silver Nemesis was the specific 25th anniversary, but the Remembrance of the Daleks is remembered incorrectly as being that, but it is part of the same season.
It's part of the same season. It kicked off the season. And many people think Remembrance was a better 25th anniversary special than Silver
True, and
Nemesis.
it would have made more sense to have that be the 25th anniversary episode.
Well, yeah,
for multiple
the thing
reasons,
is,
yeah.
JNT was like, Silver Anniversary, Cybermen! And, yeah.
And they never explained why the Cybermen went from steel to silver.
Nope.
We like this new thing called Chrome.
Although it would have been funny if that was their way of becoming immune to gold, but it wasn't.
Actually, that would have been an interesting thing to bring up, is if that had made them immune to gold or tried to help them become more immune to gold, but still didn't help.
But anyway, yeah, no. I could see why they didn't choose it over the Candyman, because Candyman was garbage. Regardless of what Bill says, Candyman was garbage.
He was a sticky mess.
I can see why they didn't like it over Lady Painfort, because she was garbage.
Yep. Same with I only remember her name as Margaret Thatcher. Sorry.
Helen A.
That's the one.
Helen A. Yeah.
But over Davros, what were they smoking?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Give me Davros over this guy.
I think it might have been a collective, we hate clowns, therefore good villains, so.
I need a bit more than just that, even though it's pretty easy, even from that standpoint, to hate a clown with being creepy.
There is logic in what he says.
There is logic in what he says.
Send in the clowns.
Which I guess even that's a negative, is that he's considered the villain worth remembering from this instead of the
Gods of Ragnarok.
Instead of the Gods of Ragnarok,
Or
which are
instead of
actually
Captain
the main
Cook.
villains. Or
I mean,
Captain Cook is also a bigger a-hole.
Yeah, like, I mean, he's kind of like, his villainy only exists because of other villains, but he's still like he's the Umbridge of this season. Of this serial, especially. Like, the Gods of Ragnarok may be the Voldemort, but he's definitely the Umbridge.
Meh.
Okay, so.
So, favorite scenes?
Favorite scenes. Bill.
Oh, that's right. I was involved in the conversation so much I stopped thinking about my favorite. What my favorite scene was. I had one too, and it's slipped my mind. Thinking, damn it.
Come on, Bill. A mind is a terrible thing to waste.
It is, and my mind has ADHD. And next person go. I will try to remember it before we get to Randy.
So,
I don't
Thomas.
want to hold this up.
I feel like, ooh, now I'm actually now that I think about it, because there's one moment that's really cool, but I'm wondering if I want to go for that over the. You know what? Screw it.
Remember.
I will. Yeah, I will go with the doctor's "cool guys don't look at explosions" moment.
I was thinking about that one too.
Yeah. It's just, especially considering that the explosion was apparently way bigger than they were expecting. So they were all like, "Oh fuck!" And apparently,
If I
and
remember
you
right,
know,
they.
like,
If I remember right, like I don't remember, like this was something I remember seeing long ago, but I think they only had one take at this, so Sylvester was like, "I
Yes.
can't fuck it up."
yeah,
It
that's
was,
why
it
he
was
kept
one take. He couldn't mess
walking.
it up, and he needed to just go do it. And apparently, I don't know if this. I think there's another one that he got hit by shrapnel from, but this one in particular, he's like, I felt the entire side of my backside feel like
Yeah,
it
like,
burnt away.
from what's
Which
behind,
explosion was this?
At the very
uh,
end,
The
yeah,
very end,
very end.
when the big top blows up.
He's walking out of the tent. Yeah.
Uh,
And it's interesting, yeah, because like I remember in the behind the scenes stuff, someone saying that like as soon as they yelled cut, Sylvester McCoy was just like, "Oh fuck," and looked back and was like,
Hmm.
apparently he half expected like all of the clothing on the back side of his body to just be non-existent with how close that explosion was. But yeah, he just kept going because it's like we've only got one fucking take. I can't.
Well, it was,
I'll just
again, it wasn't even so much the fact that it was that close to him, just that the dang thing was so big.
yeah, which again, like apparently they did. It's like, hang on, that wasn't supposed to be that big, so everyone was kind of freaked out.
So okay, so I remembered mine, and it was basically the this may be considered too big to be a scene, but I'm considering it a scene. The sequence of going from revealing that Mags is a werewolf up through basically one the transformation was decent for a Doctor Who budget. I mean, it was mainly just lighting, but it was decent. Like they pulled it off all right for what they had.
imagine what they could have done today.
Right.
Yeah.
When they had two shoestrings. But no, it fulfilled the Doctor's purpose. It kept them from being killed, and it also backfired on the asshole that pulled the trick in the first place. So I love the whole like combination of like him playing his villain hand and getting his comeuppance, and it being a decent scene on top of it, and the Doctor also
A
getting what he
decent
wants
small
out of
budget
it.
action scene and an interesting reveal for the character. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
So I guess it
All right,
comes back down
Matt.
to me now. Favorite scene. The ticket man in the bus.
Which one?
The first one. The first time we caught him in first was it the first episode? I think it was. Or was it the second
Yeah.
episode? Yeah, it was the first episode. Just starts cornering the explorer first, and he just panics and tosses hot potato right into the doctor's pocket, and the doctor just starts rambling a whole bunch of things he suddenly wants.
When he's like, oh yeah, he's handling the fares. Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, then the doctor's like, yes, I'd like a ticket. I'd like a one-way round trip. Yeah.
Just round trip,
blows
this,
out the
this,
big
this, this,
logic
this, and that,
center.
and that, and this, and the other thing on top. And by the way, could you look at this really quick?
Like one-way round trip, senior fare.
That's the same thing that he did last episode we reviewed actually to the census taker.
Yeah,
It's his way. It's his way of asserting dominance.
Yeah, it's going too fast for anyone to keep up, including a robot.
Yeah, it's his way of Captain Kirking the robot, really.
Mm-hmm.
He does it to humans too. At least bureaucrats.
Yep.
Which Doctor Who might not consider humans, but they still are.
They're on some sort of level.
There's something. We'll say that. Anyway, so my favorite scene, since nobody else took it, is him playing for time with the gods of Ragnarok and
Yes.
basically putting on a stage magician show. Although
Apparently,
I
they
am
had
wondering where he got all the props.
apparently they had a magician come in and coach Sylvester for
Yeah.
that.
Which to me I found interesting, learning that they got a magician in to teach him that, because with all the other shit I've heard about him doing and some of it being carny stuff, I kind of figured that he would have had a background in this kind
I
of...
mean, he definitely had some
Stage magic.
background, but maybe not enough.
Maybe
But-
not quite as advanced as what they got them to do on that show for this one.
By the way, I feel like this
Maybe,
is the one episode where most, if not all of us, looked up at behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah,
I have not.
So
you start doing a little bit.
most of us, yeah.
No, I said I have not looked up the behind the scenes stuff for this one.
So 3 out of 4.
Yeah. I mean, I usually do it.
My search didn't go so much behind the scenes as it went into aside stuff and some fact finding. Because there's a lot of extended universe for Doctor Who, if you will, to this episode.
Right.
Apparently, it's a fan favorite because there was enough stuff attached to it afterwards.
Well, I can tell you it has a special place in my heart. Try watching this one after watching Stephen King's It.
Well, apparently, outside of even just the audios, there's 3 audios that came off for this. There's at least a couple comic books and a couple of novels too. And they either were prequels or expansions afterwards. So.
No, like I said, I saw this right after the Stephen King's It TV movie with Tim Curry. And mind you, before that, I had thought clowns were creepy, but
Clowns
I wasn't
weird,
afraid of them. Afterwards, completely different story. Yeah, I'd always found clowns were creepy after that damn doll from Poltergeist.
Oh yeah, that doesn't help either.
And then we get these back to back, and I'm just like, no clowns. We should get you a birthday clown. Fuck you.
Happens to that clown the same thing that happens to the clown in Uncle Buck. Punch right in the schnoz, squeaks and falls over.
And of course, Sarah Jane Adventures continued the tradition with their own creepy clown.
Yeah, Doctor Who teaches us clowns are creepy.
Never trust a clown.
Where were we?
I believe I gave my I think actually Randy favored his favorites, so we're on to worst scenes.
Okay.
Scenes.
So I get the point of this scene, but I'm still going to say it as least favorite because the sequence of events doesn't make sense, and there's one gaping hole in it, and that is that. So this is after, not necessarily including this fact, but you need it for context, that the talisman falls into the canyon, and the Doctor gets to pick it up and use it, whatever. So all of that's happening. And then Captain Cook's zombified body falls through the canyon, never appears again. But immediately after that is when the whole arena that the Doctor is in starts falling apart, to the point of it's supposed to be that all of the deflected lasers are destroying things, but it almost makes it seem like the captain falling into the canyon is what's causing the gods of Ragnarok's reality to fall apart.
I think you're misremembering the staging of events there, because I think the captain fell in after the falling apart started.
He fell in after the laser reflection started, but none of the walls really fell down until he fell.
I think it was already rumbling like it was falling apart before he fell in.
It was rumbling, but and then his
so
body
I knew it was
never,
coming.
Yeah, but his body never showed up. And then after everything falls apart, the Doctor just nonchalantly walks out of the tent. So like
It's-
that's why the explosion wasn't my thing, because I'm like, this whole sequence could have used some reworking to me.
Yeah, I could definitely see that the editing in that makes it a bit hard to keep track of the
Maybe a
order
little
of
bit, yeah.
events. Because there's
If,
a lot of starting on something, then cutting away, then cutting back.
Right. If Cook hadn't like if Cook had fallen and we saw like and it was like the doctor was like climbing back out of the canyon at the same time, that might have made more sense, but they would have had to rework the order of events a little bit in that case.
Hmm.
I don't think unless I blinked and missed it, we never actually see how the doctor made it back to reality, right?
I don't think so, no.
It's just everything's
just
falling
wanted-
apart
Well,
around
we
him. and then
didn't
he
really
comes
get
back.
a
Yeah, he
clear
just-
idea how he got in there in the first place. He just literally
Yeah.
went through a doorway and suddenly he's going through a vortex
Yeah,
thingy.
I think he kind of like called out to them and then they pulled him to him.
yeah, like
to them.
He talked to them in the crystal ball.
Right,
Yeah,
that's
like-
right.
the last we see of him in that little Colosseum-y type dealy is like he bows and walks out of view, and then we never actually see him leave. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe the idea is that he crawled back through where he came in, but like I don't know.
Yeah, but with the amount of time that he got out of there so quickly, I wouldn't be surprised if he literally just somehow found the same exit that he came in from
Yeah.
as things were falling apart.
He's just like, I'm the god of Ragnarok now. Snap.
Just about.
Would not surprise me.
Mm.
They always were like, yeah, the doctor has something about him.
Especially Cartmel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Which I mentioned in our text chat. I find it hilarious that the writer of this episode apparently had zero interest in Gallifreyan history or the Doctor's backstory, to the point of even criticizing New Who for needing people to have watched previous episodes. Meanwhile, he's working with Andrew Cartmel, who's best known for drudging up all this like these questions about Gallifreyan history and the Doctor's
Yeah, all these deep
backstory.
questions and all these long lore bits.
Mm.
Anyway,
Yep. So Thomas next. Thomas is next.
Yep. I guess I'm just gonna go with like Ace like having to deal with the ticket collector robot
Damn you.
like the second time, just because it's like
Oh.
I almost give it a bit of slack because it's supposed to be a robot, but it's also like it's so unconvincing at the same time that Ace is just like, no, it's like got its hands on my head. It doesn't even really look like it's squeezing. It's just has its hands on her head, and that's enough
Mm.
Can I also select that scene, but for a different reason?
Yeah.
Interesting. Go ahead.
So at the end of it, Kingpin tells her how to stop the robot.
Mm.
And it's like, yeah, they hit the request stop button on the head. And then Ace gets that, dives back, and then goes, oh crap, dives down under the robot.
Yeah.
And he's like, get back. And while she's down there, the robot explodes. And then Ace scampers back completely unharmed.
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely a
Well,
thing where like
like
it
the
would not
Doctor, she's also immune to explosions.
Apparently.
it would
That
not
damn
surprise
plot
me.
It's leftover energy from the Hand of Omega.
Like it would not surprise me to learn that there was a slightly extended version of that where you saw her run back and then they were like trimming for time and they just figured
they really wanted a split second fake out to keep on the edge of their seat kind of a deal too.
but they did it wrongly because it looked
Yeah.
like she was there when it blew up.
Now, if that was like a cliffhanger, then maybe you could get away with that as like a, oh shit, did she survive?
Yeah.
And then like start our next episode, you show yes, she
It's
did.
like,
in fact,
you tried to
But it
cliffhanger in
was
the middle of the
already- it was
episode?
already-
No, you're lame.
It was already too late into episode 4
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
for shit like that.
Oh yeah,
The Annie Wilkes of the world would not have liked that as a cliffhanger resolution.
yeah.
But yeah, that was why I was going to select that scene, was because of that issue. That was about the only time that my brain went, no.
And I guess it's also just, to me, very unconvincing that neither her or Flower Child could open this friggin' like lunchbox or whatever
And
the
then
fuck
she
it
just
is.
steps on it.
Yeah.
And you're getting a piece of a mirror, and you step on it. What do you usually have?
A piece of the mirror in your foot.
You have a piece of the mirror in your foot.
That's a possibility too, yeah.
Even if it's beadwork, which it seems to be instead of glass, I can break beadwork with my feet. Okay, so Matt.
I'm
Your
trying to
least
find a
favorite.
shot of it, but I'm not really finding a shot of it, so I'm just going to have to describe essentially. Oh man, the tunnels of this place are all so samey.
Well, they're all circus tent.
Well, it's not even circus tent, it's like plastic wrap hallways with light colors behind them.
Yep.
And even what makes the effect also pretty bad is that at one point Ace cuts through one of them to hide, and you can literally see her entire arm as she's trying to hold it shut to make it look like it's still a solid wall. Air quotes.
Yeah, I wouldn't say plastic. It was like they had bed sheets masquerading as
So
circus
some sort of
tent.
like thin material of
Just
some kind,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, it was just fabric from what I can recall.
Yeah, it looked like cheapo bed sheets, like hospital bed sheets.
Mm.
Low thread count bed sheets.
Or like even like those disposable like tablecloths and stuff, the ones that
Yeah, something
you
along
expect to
those
throw
lines
away at
too.
the
It
end.
didn't really look plasticky to me. It looked
It looked
cheap
kind
cloth.
of plasticky to me, but it could have been either way because, well, this is like 80s camera. I can't tell for sure.
Mm. I guess at the same time, they also spent like probably most of the friggin' budget on the tent that they had to use to film this in a car park because they couldn't do it in the studio.
That and the costuming and the couple of actual set pieces they could actually make.
Mm.
Yeah, you could tell that the budgets for these shows were starting to get a little threadbare at spots.
Oh yeah, you've been able to tell that since the Fifth Doctor era.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I think that's all of our positives, negatives. Shall we go to final thoughts? And that would start.
Oh yeah, so that would be me. I was like, I wonder. I'm sitting here like, I wonder who's before me. Final thoughts. It's me.
Never mind.
So my first thought
You're
is
before yourself, Bill. Do we need to take you to a psychiatrist for a split personality issue?
I'm clearly in multiple coordinates in time and space.
He's pan-dimensional.
But my first final thought is, why is it called the Psychic Circus when none of the actual entertainment has to do with psychic abilities?
Well, we don't know what the other people did. The ones that were already
The ones
dead.
that aren't there anymore. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, all the psychic things in the circus are things that they would not want the audience to know about at this point. Anyway, so this is a very interesting episode. I had the thought watching it that it was a little Python-esque and a little Robert Holmesian, but not quite on the level of either one, to the point where it was just kind of leaning in that direction without really solidly being either of those two things. it would have been really interesting to see. We didn't really talk about what was her name, Stahl's lady, um, much at all, but she was kind of interesting, and it would have, in a Robert Holmes plot, she would have had a bigger role, I think, or at least would have had more than one. She would have a second joke. But
her, yeah.
yeah. Although I mean, some of her points are relevant when it comes to things that people in the countryside would have had to deal with about people coming in and setting up businesses.
Flower Child, by the way. Her name was Flower Child.
No, Stahl's lady is the one I'm talking about.
Oh,
the local.
The local stall lady. Okay, all right.
I think the doctor would have called her local color, if I remember.
Some of the local color. Yes.
Names right.
I think of her as Angry Hobbit Lady because she's basically like every angry Hobbit ever.
But yeah, at least her first appearance was a pretty relevant note. And that's kind of how this story is. I mentioned before that it says some interesting things about colonialism. There are some things that can be read as a criticism of art under capitalism, although that might be a stretch. It's a little hard to tell at this point. Whereas if it were really a Robert Holmes or a Monty Python writing it, it would have been obvious. It would have been stronger. So that's kind of what I say about this episode, where there's some good things in there. It's not masterful, but I think it's pretty solid. And it's definitely interesting. I don't know why so much of the story I kind of ignored the first time I watched it, when I was like, when are the gods of Ragnarok going to show up? But on this rewatch, I think I appreciate it a lot more than I did previously.
All right. Thomas?
To me, this was interesting watching, and I brought it up before we started, but this was interesting watching with the fan. I know it has to be a fan theory in mind that this was possibly a sort of self-reflection of the point the show was at this point, because if it was there at all, it was subconscious, because in the behind the scenes thing I watched, they do not mention that at all in one way or the other. Like they don't bring it up to deny it, but they also don't bring it up to be like, oh yeah, this was definitely Thinger. I mean, they don't even talk about WizKid, which is kind of funny.
And was that a DVD? So after the point of retaliation?
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, I don't know, maybe on like the like Blu-ray box set, maybe they'll have a thing that where they'll confront that to be like, is that there? I don't know. And like, and like maybe they'll address whether it is or not. But basically, by virtue of them not bringing it up, I am going to assume no, that was not an intentional thing. And it's probably WizKid being intentional, like an intentional kind of dig at the fan base, that might have spurred that fan theory. And there are bits and pieces where, I mean, I made the joke about like there's that bit of dialogue where Bellboy says they took everything that was bright and good about what we had and buried it, and buried it where it will never be found again. And Ace says, I don't understand who's they. And I, in my head, I was just thinking the BBC hirer.
There's another answer. There's another answer to that, and that would have been John Nathan Turner.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just like it was kind of like there were bits that were funny with that in mind, and like a lot of people just feeling you could kind of read some of the circus performers as people who had been on Doctor Who for the long haul and were kind of sick of it at this point. But yeah, like even then, I feel like that's a lot more incidental than like, oh god,
Purposeful.
I've already forgotten it now. The third Doctor story that I brought up before that has a similar theory around it. But yeah, either way, like yeah, there's definitely flaws here and there. But ultimately, while it's interesting because this is one of those Doctor Who serials that has a more positive reputation, as far as I'm aware. And I've kind of fallen it's good, but I don't know if it's great. But either way, it's still worth checking out, and I do think people should give it a shot.
All right, Matt.
So finally on to me. So the problem I have with the episode last week was that they had good ideas, but man, could they not execute anything. This week is definitely they had a similar set of really good ideas, and thank God most of them came through. I will also admit that not everything was perfect with this one. There's a few little touchy things here and there where it's like, they could have done a little bit more, but maybe budget-wise they couldn't. Just the fault of the time, I suppose. But I have to say, a lot of this I really did enjoy. I didn't get any of that whole, is it a dig at the... I was actually kind of questioning if that kid was a dig at the fans, but I kind of decided it wasn't because there's a little too much here and there, maybe, but there's definitely a possibility you could read it that way. I definitely don't see it as a how was the condition of the show like right now either, but I definitely do get I love the special effects of it. I love a lot of the ideas and definitely a lot of the characters they threw into this. And I do also feel like some people have felt that Max kind of got prematurely cut off, if you will. That there's a lot of interesting stuff, things where that character can go, and apparently has been going now for several years afterwards. Other than that, also our main cast were doing a really great job. Enjoyed a lot of the stuff Sylvester. Enjoyed a lot of stuff out of Ace for this one. Yeah, just I enjoyed a lot of this, to be honest, even if there is a little bit of shoestringiness around.
All right. By the way, it is official. The source that says WizKid was a parody of Fans comes from the episode guide from the BBC website. Although
that's a pretty authoritative source.
They note in particular parody of anal retentive obsessive fans. So
Peter Capaldi?
really, he's a parody of fanboys.
Yeah.
If you notice the difference between fans and fanboys.
Essentially, they were poking fun at their then in their time version of Stans. Just about. Although I think Stans might actually be worse than some of those. But anyway.
Anyway, so like I said, this one has a special place in my heart. Because yes, it did after this give me a fear of clowns. I was amazed at how much I didn't remember about this episode. I didn't remember the well. And there were little bits here and there where I didn't remember pieces, but I was like, oh, okay, now this makes a little more sense. As I was watching it, I still find the clowns creepy as fuck. I will state that. I mentioned that the least favorite character was the chief clown. He's still creepy as fuck. Like I said, he is literally like, a maniacal cackle away from being the Joker. So yes, that freaks me out. I'm not going to negative this episode because of it, however, because this is the source for me. There is very much a lot of everything I like about this episode. And there's only a couple things I dislike. So overall, this is a very good episode to me. I thought for especially something that apparently they said, here's a title, go with it. I thought it was well written. Definitely well acted by most people. The special effects for what they had was decent. The set work for what they had to work with was decent. I mean, it wasn't going to get much better if they filmed those corridor scenes on a sound stage, because they would have redressed it the same way to try to make it look like a circus tent. So the only thing that I think they could have worked better is if they could have found some stripes. But either way, I very much enjoy this episode, and I think this is probably one of the highlights of this season up there with this is probably number 2 to Remembrance of the Daleks. It's like you've got Remembrance of the Daleks, this, and then it's a fight for the toilet between Happiness Patrol and Silver Nemesis. And I think Silver Nemesis wins the Toilet Bowl award.
I'm the toilet bowl, at least I'm not the shit.
All right. So let's rate this puppy.
So I gave the last 2 stories a 4, it looks like. And I'm thinking, do I really dare? And I think I do. I think I'm going to give this a 4.5.
0.5 from Bill. 0.5 from Bill. Thomas?
Hmm.
You gave the last 2 episodes a 4.5.
And that's kind of interesting because I'm wondering
Seems like a 5.
if I feel like that's on the same. I don't think I have it in me to give this a 5. So now it's a matter of whether I think it's on par enough with the previous 2 or slightly worse. And I don't think I can have it in me to give it less than the previous 2, so I'll give it a 4.5 as well.
0.5. Before I get to Matt, let me do something really quick. Okay. Go ahead, Matt.
All right. Can I just say, yeah, Echo 4.5.
0.5, 4.5, 4.5. Oh. The question becomes, do I like this as much as Paradise Towers?
You gave the last 2 episodes a 5 and a 2.
Yeah. This is definitely going closer to 5 than 2. I really did not like the Happiness Patrol. The thing is, for me, Paradise Towers was just north of that 4.75. Yeah, I have to go with that too on this one. This is another 5 for me.
Ah.
So between that, it all averages out to a 4.6.
Means Randy is wrong.
Not that we've done much yet, but this is technically the highest rating so far of the 3 things we've done this season.
It is on par with, that makes it 48 out of 387 things reviewed. Excuse me, 388 things reviewed. It is on par with Seeds of Death, Talents of Wang Chiang, Arachnids in the UK, The Ghost Monument, The Invasion of Time, The Magician's Apprentice, The Witch's Familiar, The Return of Dr. Mysterio, The Ark, Creature from the Pit, Image of the Fendel, Ambassadors of Death, and The Bells of St. John. It is better than Utopia, Here Comes the Drums, Last of the Time Lords, Zygon Invasion, Zygon Inversion, New Earth, Enlightenment, Resolution, Mission to the Unknown, etc. And not as good as Stolen Earth, Journey's End, Kinda, and Day of the Doctor. So there we go.
And it's the 3rd best 7th Doctor story we've reviewed. Based on numbers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's quite amazing. So there we go. What did I say, 48?
Something like that. It was in the 40s, I remember.
48 out of 388 things reviewed. That is all we have to say about the greatest show in the galaxy.
All right, so please let us know in the comments what you think. Do you agree with our consensus? Or do you actually, dislike the episode for some reason we overlooked? Don't forget to like or dislike the video. And, of course, subscribe and ring the bell to get our exports every week on YouTube. Or follow us on Twitch to get our streams every Wednesday night.
All right, so next week, we conclude the Seventh Doctor and Classic Who with a trip to the coast of England, circa World War II. It's The Curse of Fenrik, written by Ian Briggs and starring Sylvester McCoy as the Doctor and Sophie Aldred as Ace. See you next week.
Good night.